Audio on demand and spoken word content are having a surge in accessibility, creativity, and popularity. Who here listens to podcasts? Woohoo! Okay, and does anybody here have a podcast or work in the podcasting space? Any looking forward to or thinking about a career? Great. Well, it's a really exciting time. And for the few of you who aren't listening to podcasts, I encourage you to find one because there are thousands. Podcasts have been around for 10 years, but there are a number of factors driving increased accessibility and learning. Smartphones, in particular the iPhone, broadband cellular, and Wi-Fi make it really easy for people to download or even stream podcasts anytime, anywhere. And this has resulted in 57 million people a month listening to podcasts, and it's growing every day. So that seems like a large number, and it is a large number, but that number is only 2% of the overall listening going on in audio right now. It's dominated by AM, FM, and streaming. So the opportunity to grow the podcasting pie is huge. The people who listen to podcasts listen to it more than any other format. It's the majority of their listening, and podcast listeners listen to 6 hours of audio a day. In addition to that, this consumer loves podcasts, and it's very near and dear to their heart. And it's interesting because we're not sure if it's the earbuds or the fact that people are opting in and listening when and how they want to versus years ago, or if it's the fact that people are co-creating in their minds. But we're actually working on a neuroscience study to determine if what people hear via podcasts is somehow more resonant than what they absorb in other media. So stay tuned for that. So Apple currently dominates all podcast listening, or most podcast listening. And that's great because they've been responsible for driving a lot of that. However, the downside is they own the data. So many of us in the podcasting space, publishers, platform owners, producers, we're flying blind, and the industry really needs a third-party measurement like Nielsen does for television to help grow the business, because investors, advertisers, and others are somewhat reluctant to spend more than they already are in the space. But rumor has it that a research firm in the field in the coming months is going to have a podcast ranking, and that'll be good for everybody. And it's important for people to know, especially if you're thinking about creating a podcast yourself or what you could listen to, there's no one genre that dominates. Politics, history, art, science, storytelling, investigative journalism. Who here has listened to Serial? Woohoo! Okay, well, that was really a watershed moment for podcasting because it was the first water cooler moment podcasts had versus big television shows or hot movies. And it really elevated the whole idea of podcasting in the popular mind. So we have newcomers as well as very established companies creating in the podcasting space. So you have newcomers like Gimlet and Midroll, as well as the New York Times, Huffington Post, and Slate creating content. Has anybody heard of Mark Maron and his podcast, WTF? Very funny. And I want to note that because the cost of entry can be very low. Mark Maron interviewed the President of the United States from his garage studio. And it's important to note that there are platforms like SoundCloud and Acast that make it very easy for anybody who wants to create a podcast. And similar to YouTube, there's sort of a democratization of content creation and distribution that never existed before. So you don't have to go through a big media company or have a contract with a big player. And very excitingly, streaming platforms like Pandora, Spotify, and Audible are embracing podcasts and putting podcasts on their platforms. So you can imagine the millions of people that are going to come. NPR launched its own platform, and NPR One is a unique platform. It's a new business model, and it's a feedback loop. So it allows people to continuously listen to NPR or pick a particular show. The app allows you to search, play, skip, share. And the cool thing for us is it allows us to see on a second-by-second basis what people are listening to, how they're listening to it. We also allow people to listen to their local stations. If they want a combination of local, national, global, it will allow you to listen to station in another market, and it allows you to donate to that station. Click here if you want to donate to WNYC, our member station here in New York. So if you can imagine what it's been like, it's a very exciting time at NPR because journalists and creators now have this build, measure, and learn model to launch new voices, launch new ways of speaking to audiences. And I'll give you an example. Recently, the question on the table at NPR was, do people want to listen to a weekly political roundup? Well, you know, a roundtable discussion of more politics at the end of the week. There was a very split thought about, you know, which way to go. So we produced a pilot. We created a promo based on an outtake of the show, put it on NPR One, and said, click here if you want to listen to more. And the click-through was really high. So we went ahead and we launched the show. And then the question was, okay, what is going to keep people listening longer? Is it a really controversial start to the show, something that's really going to get people's attention? Or is it, hey, we're all sitting around here at the end of the week? Well, it was the controversial start. And we never would have had that data otherwise. So to talk to some of the people, you know, I spoke to a 10-year radio veteran who is a programmer on NPR One, and she said, Gina, I couldn't make the decisions I make without the data. And I'm not saying that decides my way to go, but it informs my decisions, just like my journalistic background, just like my knowledge of the subject, just like my ability to create great audio inform my decisions to do certain things. So like I said, it's a very exciting time. The data, for those of you who are studying the importance of that and how to work with it, it's really having a very positive impact in our organization. I'm going to talk a bit about business models. For those of you who listen to podcasts, you know one of the business models is advertising. And I will tell you that studies we have done in regard to NPR sponsorship, people like the sponsors, appreciate they're making it happen, really like the host-read messaging, and we call this the halo effect. It's, I don't know if it's the fact that they've opted in. I don't know if it's the fact that they like the show, but I never saw this in commercial media. So it's really worth noting, but that is the most lucrative form of monetizing podcasts right now. The next model is sponsored content. Have any of you listened to The Message, created by GE and Panoply? Very cool. Very sci-fi, harkens back to War of the Worlds. Fascinating. The other model is crowdsourcing and fundraising. At Planet Money, we followed how to make a t-shirt from beginning, growing the cotton in Mississippi, all the way to manufacturing and distributing it. And we raised a ton of money this way. Megan was just telling me that she pays $3.99 a month for This American Life. And Gimlet also has a special member price, so you have access to content. So, and if you listen to WTF and other podcasts, they just come out and say, hey, if you like this podcast, donate here so I can make more. It's very cool. And then the other opportunity is events. This American Life does cast parties where they live stream their show. And last year they simulcasted in theaters around the country. So there has never been before technology platforms, more creativity, more access to audience, ways to monetize. So if you're thinking of joining the podcasting revolution, I highly encourage it. And that's what I have to say today. Thank you so much.